Let's talk about Bryan Kohberger, because the shit hit the fan in that case after that Dateline episode. So we talked about the Dateline episode on this show after it hit, which was 2 weeks ago now, and they had all sorts of amazing scoops. And I mean, I've told the audience, but just to let you guys know, it's fine to like Dateline. You cannot watch the Today Show. I forbid it. You cannot both watch the Today Show and this show. But you're allowed to like Dateline because those are good people. And they got amazing scoops, including videotape of his, of a white Hyundai Elantra on the night of the murders of those 4 Idaho college students. Bryan Kohberger, who was getting his PhD at nearby Washington State University, as the suspect, and had a white Hyundai Elantra. And the belief is that the prosecution will argue that's his, but Dateline got the tapes of the white Hyundai Elantra going past their house, like over and over and over. It looks like he was casing the joint just moments before the murders were committed. One could presume he was waiting for all the lights to be turned off because it was like in the 3 a.m. hour. But these are college students, so they're out late and the lights were on, and we believe at least 2 of them were still up even when he entered the house. Anyway, they got, hold on, there's so much more. I'm just going to give you a couple of lists. Stand by.
Search history on the internet, looking up porn, looking up
search history. Look at that. Viva knows. He checked out. He had to look up those same searches for research.
Oh, no, I the funny thing is, I didn't see the Dateline. I don't watch TV anymore, but I read what they had. They've convinced me that he's guilty, and I say that cynically.
Yes.
Like, they convinced me because it's a one-sided expose of leaked information, and then the flip side, I'm getting cynical. All right, so the dude's looking up porn. Add him to the list of 98% of men out there. He's looking up Ted Bundy. He's studying criminology at university. They have some footage of a vehicle. That's getting there. But the I was gonna say the killer evidence. The best piece of evidence is that speck of DNA on a knife holster. That's all they got. With an evening of a struggle.
That's all they got. The guy was shoving his trash into little plastic baggies to be disposed of in the neighbor's trash, Phil, when the cops burst into his parents' home and raided it.
Yeah, sure. There's a lot of, and circumstantial evidence has put a lot of people in prison in the United States over the years, and it will continue to do so. So you put all this together, and it does paint a very damning picture. But here's my concern. If somebody violated the gag order, what if this judge says, okay, we're not going to let the jury hear this because that's going to be my remedy for violating my gag order? It could very well happen that because of this leak, somebody who's a guilty murderer walks free.
That's exactly right. That's why we can hate Dateline. No, it's not the reporter's fault. It's whoever leaked. It's that person's fault. It's not up to Dateline to protect the integrity of the prosecution. We in the press have no obligation to do that. If we get a scoop, and if somebody had given me the scoop, I would have run with it too. It's up to the leaker to protect the investigation. And there's far more that they revealed. And Ann Taylor, the name of his Bryan Kohberger's defense lawyer, is pushing for additional yet unspecified as of now remedies to punish whoever leaked this. Ann Taylor is saying that she wants remedies. She wants she says the violations could warrant remedies more serious than delay, because I kind of bury the lead. This has come up because she's pushed for a delay of the trial, which is set for this August. And she's saying, we can't do it. This is too much was revealed in too high profile a manner for us to just run to trial. It's still in people's heads, and it shouldn't be. The court ruled that it shouldn't be. The court put a gag order on this case, including the evidence. And there's a reason for that. He didn't want to prejudice the defendant before trial. It's a death penalty case. And yet somebody violated it, so it would appear. And he is prejudiced. So we do not agree to this August trial, and you should bounce it, she says to the judge. And then she says that line in her motion saying, these violations could warrant remedies more serious than delay. And that's teeing up what Phil just said, which is maybe the prosecution should not be allowed to use these things. Like if they find out that a law enforcement officer or somebody in the prosecution's office, my money would be on the former. I just don't think the prosecution would do it, but law enforcement tend to be kind of leaky. That you should punish the prosecution. Like, don't let them introduce, for example, the videotape of the white Hyundai Elantra circling the murder house over and over and over in the hours immediately leading up to the murder. And here is, not for nothing, but Keith Morrison on the new car footage in that now problematic Dateline that aired May 9th. Listen to SOT 33. Or is this just, is this a SOT, you guys, or is this video? Let's watch 33.
This video, obtained exclusively by Dateline, shows a white car on King Road in Moscow, Idaho on November 13th, 2022. At the wheel, the state will allege, was Bryan Kohberger, making repeated passes near a house where minutes later 4 students were stabbed to death.
Here's a little bit more on his internet searches, which we touched on just a bit, but here's a little bit more on his obsession with Ted Bundy. SOT 37.
In late December, 6 weeks after the murders of Maddie Mogan, Kaylee Gonsalves, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, records show Kohberger, a criminology student, was again on his phone playing a clip from a YouTube program called Ted Bundy, the Essence of a Psychopath.
My name is Ted Bundy.
Within 24 hours of that, 2 selfies. Kohberger dressed the same way Bundy is pictured on that program.
Exactly the same. Very creepy. And on top of that, Dateline revealed we had heard this was possible before the Dateline episode. This is the first I know where it was confirmed by anybody, and it's about that K-bar knife. Keep in mind, for the listening audience, the murder was committed, they said, with a K-bar knife that they never found. But they did find a knife sheath that appears to match the murder weapon on site. That's what Viva referenced. One spot of touch DNA was recovered from the snap on that knife sheath that was ultimately matched directly to Bryan Kohberger. But they never did find the murder weapon. But they revealed, again, we had heard that this may have been the case, but this is the first I heard it actually confirmed and reported, that Kohberger went to buy another K-bar knife on Amazon right after the murders. SOT 36.
After the murders, investigators discovered a sheath from a K-bar knife apparently left by the killer in one of the victim's beds. DNA found on that sheath has been linked to Bryan Kohberger. Dateline was the first to report that Kohberger bought a K-bar knife 7 months before the murders. And now we've obtained records showing that after the murders, Kohberger was back on Amazon looking at K-bars. He even clicked Buy Now and began the checkout process before exiting.
Okay, and that was new information, guys, because what had been reported earlier was that he may have gone on Amazon and was looking at, I think that was the term, was looking at K-bar knives. But and somebody defended him by saying, well, or he had reportedly said, or his lawyer had said, Amazon serves that stuff up to you, like you don't control. And it might have been somebody even in his family account who was looking for knives. And now we hear from the Dateline that he clicked, that he was going to buy, click to buy. So he definitely got this from law enforcement, guys. Who else would have this amount of detail and turned over evidence, gave him surveillance video?
Well, my instinct is similar to yours. I don't suspect it was any of the attorneys related to the prosecution team. Law enforcement, as you mentioned, does tend to be leakier as a general rule. Of course, we don't know until the investigation reveals who the leaker is in this case. But my money would be that it's somewhere in the sort of investigative team on the law enforcement side. But here's the problem. The judge is between a rock and a hard place, because on the one hand, somebody clearly violated this gag order, and there's got to be a penalty for that. On the other hand, if the judge completely guts the prosecution's case and excludes all of this very, very powerful evidence, that remedy would be very extreme, because it probably would lead to the acquittal of someone who killed probably 4 people. So the judge is not going to want to necessarily do that. So he's certainly not going to, the judge is not going to throw out the indictment. That's not going to happen either. I think what's going to happen is they're going to find out who did this, and they're going to throw somebody in jail for contempt of court. And there may be other less severe things that are related directly to the prosecution's evidentiary presentation. But if we had to guess, I'm going to say that they're not going to completely throw this evidence out of the case. It can be used, but somebody's going to pay a price for this leak.
Somebody played with fire, Viva, because this is good evidence for the prosecution. And if it's somebody on team prosecute, whether it's cops or investigators or the DA's office, they're playing with fire. This is great stuff that you would never want excluded as the DA.
I think Dateline's playing with fire with this. I mean, we refer to it as a leak. This isn't a leak. This is the whole thing. Like, someone had access to the file, and I question whether or not someone stole the file. Forget whether or not it was leaked. And Dateline...
K-Mo didn't steal the file. He would never.
Dateline running this 3 months before, it's 2 months before jury selection. They have to know what they're going to do to the trial in this. And I'm all for freedom of the press, and there's no but to that. I just say, after they've gone after James O'Keefe, investigated him for having accessed Ashley Biden's diary, there's some serious questions as to whether or not journalists might have partaken in criminal activity in order to obtain this entire file and then make a one-sided expose on the eve of the trial. I think this case was one that had a change in jurisdiction as well because of how...
Yes.
So this is almost sabotage of the trial. Maybe someone's got a crush on Kohberger. For those who study Ted Bundy, there's a bunch of people who fall in love with serial killers. But fire, I think Dateline is playing with fire by having published this, because this is the trial before the trial.
Very, very attracted to a story that casts NBC in a bad light, but I have to defend them here. I just think it's not their responsibility. If somebody gave me that evidence, I would 100% air it. It's a huge scoop. This July, there is a global summit of BRICS nations in Rio de Janeiro. The bloc of emerging superpowers, including China, Russia, India, and Iran, are meeting with the goal of displacing the U.S. dollar as the global currency. They're calling this the Rio Reset. As BRICS nations push forward with their plans, some worry global demand for U.S. dollars will decrease, bringing down the value of the dollars in your savings. While this transition, if it happens, would not happen overnight, the Rio Reset could mark a pivotal moment. So learn if diversifying your savings into gold is right for you. Birch Gold Group can help you move your hard-earned savings into a tax-sheltered IRA in precious metals. Claim your free info kit on gold by texting MK to the number 989898. With an A-plus rating from the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, let Birch Gold arm you with a free, no-obligation info kit on owning gold before July and the Rio Reset. Text MK to the number 989898 today. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.